Welcome everyone. If you're just coming in, we got a couple questions for you. Answer in the chat before we get started. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. What people are throwing in the chat here. Oh, hi, Helen. Yes. We finally see each other. Okay, I see the audio is garbled. Not my air conditioning looking at home. Is that a little better? No. Okay. Well, perfect song transition. We'll get started in just a minute. If you are new and just entering, we'd love to hear your answers to this in the chat. And hello, Helen. Great to see you finally from LinkedIn to Zoom. Ooh, Terry, the aftermath of the election is keeping you up at night. Yes. All right, what else do we have here? November, no, we're not there yet, but we probably should be from Jake. Potential violence and the whole fascism thing. The whole fascism thing is keeping you up at night. Yep. Started planning. Michelle started in combating misinformation. Great. Brittany, sounds like y'all have it started at WFYI, but disengagement of voters. Good stuff. Well, Scott and Erica are going to be able to give you some insights on things and tools that you can use for some of the things that are keeping you up at night. We can't solve democracy, but we can give you some free tools to help you do your best in this really, really rough moment. All right, well, we're about 5 after, so I'd say let's get going. I'm gonna try and DJ this. All right, there we go. A nice fade out here. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Brandel. I'm one of the folks behind Election SOS and a lot of different collaborations that I'm going to take you through really quickly, that a bunch of incredible journalism support orgs and individuals have been working hard to create and make available to journalists around the country in the election. We are going to focus on the Night Election Hub, but before we do, I'm just going to take you through some of the other things that are on offer, and we'll send a follow-up email to everyone who registered with links to all this stuff as well. But we jokingly call this the Everything Bagel deck, in that we have a lot of different things we've created for newsrooms and journalists to take advantage of for this specific moment. So we know covering elections is hard, and we have a variety of ways we can help you. We have Election SOS. If you haven't signed up for the weekly newsletter yet, please do. It's going to be a must use as we get closer to the election and even now. And we are sharing upcoming training, funding opportunities, best practices, guides, checklists. We have a vetted expert network for you to use. We're going to be doing some really amazing scenario planning and tabletop exercises for political violence and some of these things that are keeping you up at night. So that's a brief overview of Election SOS. The Night Election Hub, woohoo, this is why we're here today. You're going to learn a lot more about this. But in short, you're going to see a tour of free and reduced price resources, as well as understand how to join a network of peer support. The Democracy Toolkit is a way of really getting read in on some of the things that lead to democratic backsliding. So what are those characteristics and where are we at right now in this historic moment? Not only will it give you kind of that philosophical underpinning, it'll point to guides and best practices around some of the things that your newsroom is contending with that are for journalists. They're not just generalized, but they're really, really useful. And then if you haven't signed up for Democracy Day yet, please do. It's a great way to participate in helping your community understand what threats to democracy exist right now, what people are doing to harden democracy for their communities, and to be part of a nationwide collaborative. So we'll share out more information. It's September 15th. so you have some time to be part of it. And again, we'll share out this as well if you'd like to participate. We won't do the video. And then there's also a massive online course, open online course about campaign reporting that centers communities and solutions. This is self-service, it's free. You can learn more by going to this link here, which again we'll share, but it's a way for you to think about doing reporting that's really centering the communities you're trying to serve. You'll learn about the citizens' agenda, solutions journalism, trust and transparency techniques from Trusting News as well. So all these folks are here to make these amazing resources possible for you. And we're really excited that you're here today to learn more specifically about the Night Election Hub. And before we get into the hub, and I throw it to Scott and Erica here, we wanted to give folks just this question to answer in the chat, because what we learned here, Scott and Erica might be able to speak to with what is in the Night Election Hub. So take a moment and consider this million-dollar question. If you could wave a magic wand, what resources do you wish your newsroom had for covering elections this year? And I know more people on staff is probably like number one for most folks, but you know, barring that, what do you wish you could do better, do differently, do more efficiently? What do you wish, what resources would you like to have in a perfect world? So we'll take a moment for folks to throw their answers in the chat. I'm gonna open up my chat here and see what's coming through. All right, nothing yet. So let's see those magic wands. We'll give you just another minute to answer this question, and then I'll throw it over to Scott to share more about the hub. Great. Brittany, more time to spend listening in the community. Yes, without the pressure of turning a story, listening and learning. Oh, Paul agrees. City and county APIs. Ooh, great. Excellent. What other things would make your life better, easier, you able to serve the public more? Tyler says, when we asked our readers for feedback in our primary election, a lot of them said they wanted more info from candidates, their voting records, what they've said about certain issues. Great. Time. Ideas for where to best engage with the Latinx communities, Vox Pop, some financial resources for freelancers, quick and easy ways to collaborate with other newsrooms. Okay, this is terrific. So keep those ideas going here, because I can feed those to Scott and Erica as well to see if we have stuff in the hub to help you. Jake says resources for pop-up newsrooms in cities around the country. Okay, excellent. Well, I'm going to stop screen share and throw it over to Scott Klein, who needs no introduction, but in case you don't know Scott, he is someone who has really been at the helm of really smart collaborations like Electionland. He's been at ProPublica, the city, and he's just been in this work doing the great work of helping newsrooms do better everything for a long, long time. And he's the brains and kind of the hub of the election hub as an entrepreneur in residence at Newspack right now. So Scott, we'll throw it over to you to give us the quick and dirty on the Night Election Hub, sorry.
That's okay. The Night News Challenge, I think, is what you were thinking of. So hi everybody, it is great to be here. First, I just wanted to thank Jen and Bridget and Masara for all the incredible work that they do. You know, we are very much sibling organizations with Democracy SOS, and they are in all of our Slacks, and we are kind of working on things very much in concert. So it is great to be here. It's thrilled to see all of you. As Jen said, I'm Scott Klein. I used to be at ProPublica, where I ran the Electionland project from 2016 to 2020. And I'm now at Newspack, helping, if people know that, and I see some Newspack publishers here, helping publishers make the most of that platform. But I'm here as an entrepreneur in residence with a generous grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation to help newsrooms around the country on any platform, not just Newspack, do a great job covering the election. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Night Election Hub, which launched and is there on the internet, so folks can go take a look at it. But I want to sort of give a little bit of its superhero origin story so you understand kind of what we're about and what we're interested in doing. I'm going to share my screen in a second, but first I want to introduce Erica Peterson, who is my colleague and who's working on the Night Election Hub, but especially on a project called GovPEC. So she's going to talk in a minute, but Erica, do you want to just introduce yourself while I queue up the slides?
Sure. I don't know what else to say about that. My name is Erica Peterson. I've spent my entire career working in local nonprofit newsrooms, most recently Mountain State Spotlight in West Virginia, also public radio, Louisville Public Media in Louisville. Yeah, I'm really excited to be working on this project with Scott.
I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can because what I would really love to do, rather than doing the talking, is doing a lot of listening and hearing from you all, both your responses to the Magic Wand question, but also what are you all planning on doing, and what is getting in your way of success? I would really love to hear everybody's election plans. And so hopefully I can kind of go through this pretty quickly, and get to the good part, from my perspective anyway, and I'm sure from Erica's as well, which is to hear what you're interested in and to talk through how we might be able to help. So just really quickly, the Election Hub is part of an overall project at Knight called the Knight Election Integrity Initiative. And it has a very specific set, it sort of has its own mission statement. And the mission statement is in three parts. First, we want people to be, we want people to have the information they need to make a voting decision. We're not trying to increase turnout. We're not trying to pick a candidate. We don't really are not trying to participate politically. We just want news to do what it always does, which is to give people the information that they need to make a really good decision. We also want people to have justified confidence in their results. I'm sure people remember, don't need reminding of the outcome of the 2020 election, and the misinformation and the anxiety, and the violence, frankly, that happened after that election. And, we believe strongly that news can play a role in helping inform those communities so that they very much understand the way that the process worked, and to have more confidence that the process worked as intended. And so that's a key goal as well. And finally, and frankly, this is the hardest part, we want the world to understand, we want Americans to understand, that the reason that they had they had the information they needed to vote, the reason that they had confidence in the outcome was because of their local newsroom. And so we very much want to create lasting relationships. We want our publishers to create lasting relationships. And we also want people to sort of, understand that they got that information through news. So I started this job up in late April. So really, I'm still really new here. But we started with a quick survey, and with some conversations, with actually two quick surveys, and some conversations with newsrooms around the country. And what we discovered, is lots of people were planning on doing some election coverage, but they didn't yet have a kind of clear picture of kind of what help they needed, kind of what parts that they sort of, what they were planning, and kind of what they most needed help with. They sort of wanted lots of help across lots and lots of different categories. Yes to voter guides, yes to misinformation, yes to election night coverage, yes to political violence. They kind of wanted help across the whole spectrum. One thing we definitely heard, though, was that one thing we definitely got the sense of when we were talking to them is that they didn't really understand the universe of resources that were already available to them. And they had a high level of anxiety about really even small expenditures necessary to do some of the sort of higher end stuff. So were things they sort of didn't even know existed, even for free. And at the same time, even small expenditures, let alone really large expenditures, even small expenditures were, especially for our smallest, newest newsrooms, where things were outside the budget and hard for them to justify and take advantage of. And so we thought that these were problems that we could solve. We could help create an interface for the news universe, that would be tailored to kind of the needs of news, that a news leader could come and see all of the things that were available to them kind of laid out in a way so that they were kind of matched, sort of like newsroom priorities and newsroom tasks and things like that. And then in the case where the resources cost money, I could pick up the check. And so that is why we made the Knight Election Hub. It is we launched at IRE, so however long IRE ago was ago. So it is still pretty new, and we keep adding resources to it. I'm not going to do a demo because I really would like to hear more from folks, but the URL is here, and it is something you need to have an account with Muckrock in order to apply for the so-called premium services, which are free. But you can go and examine it now. So I'm going to skip a demo. But along the way, we brought up organizations into the fold, and they helped us create it, which includes Election SOS, who, as I said at the top, is very much a sibling organization. The folks at Open News, and I'm not sure if any Open News folks are here, but the Open News folks have been absolutely critical in creating this, and they are running which I'll talk about in a second, they're running a series of community of practice calls, helping newsrooms talk to each other and collaborate around their election coverage. And Muckrock, which, if folks don't know, is the preeminent service that helps news file and process their open records requests. And they're also the parent organization of things like Document Cloud, Klaxon, and a bunch of other projects. So we brought a bunch of organizations together, and as a sort of a group of organizations, we created the Night Election Hub together. So what's in the hub? We launched with 100. We're now up to 150, more than 150 resources. Erica is working very much sort of acting as editor of the hub. And so I'm sure the number is even bigger now, but this number kind of grows day by day. So tremendous number of resources that are available to newsrooms. I think there are about a dozen resources among those that require payment. And again, Night is picking up the check for those, so they are free to the underlying newsrooms, given some eligibility requirements that I'll talk about in a second. And they're really things that cover every point in the cycle. It's not just election night. These are resources that you could be using right now. So a quick note about eligibility. So obviously anyone can log into the hub, and can navigate to the hub, and any of the resources that are there are available for anybody. It's essentially a discovery service for things you may not know existed. For the purple colored resources, which are the ones that require payment, again, from Night, we do have some rules that we have to follow as a charitable organization, and some others that, again, point to the overall goal, which is to help newsrooms, especially sort of smaller newsrooms that serve underserved communities. So the rules are, you have to sort of be a newsroom that makes does original news gathering, as opposed to kind of opinion and aggregation and things like that. We love national organizations, the Forward. And so if the Forward wanted in, that'd be great, but it has to have the project that you're going to apply for the premium resources has to have a local focus. So it can't be, the project can't be national. The project has to be, or subject-based. The project has to have kind of a local sort of nexus. As a charitable nonprofit, we can't do political work, and so the organization that is receiving the resource can't be partisan, can't be part of a political party, can't do kind of largely political opinion type journalism. They can't sort of be in the business of being the mouthpiece of a party or something like that. We'd like to have people have an ethics policy and a printed ethics policy on your websites, which is important to us. I think we have talked to some people who have one, but it's not on their website, or they promise to have it sort of by the time that they get the money in or whatever. And so in those cases, we have been working with newsrooms, but it's important for folks to have an ethics policy. And so we put it in as a requirement. And then finally, we need folks to be either a nonprofit, and they could be a nonprofit of any size, large or small, or if they're a for-profit organization, we like to work with the ones on the smaller side. So we're setting the ceiling at $5 million in revenue, but if you're over 5 million, let's talk. What we're really trying to do is avoid giving money that could be going to a small organization to a huge hedge fund owned, mega corp that just is setting its priorities, in other places. So again, worth a conversation. Some of these are non-negotiable, some of these are kind of flexible, and we can have a conversation, but those are the kind of eligibility requirements. There we go. We are particularly interested in working with newsrooms that serve underserved, marginalized, diasporic communities, new Americans. I think that's a thing I just heard, which is a fantastic way to think about it. So lots of communities that we are very interested in supporting and serving with this. And we are also interested, especially, but again, if you're not in one of these states, still, apply. We're interested in what are called the high scrutiny, what I'm calling the high scrutiny states. Hard to say if they're swing states. That sort of changes day by day. But these are the sort of 6 traditional swing states plus Ohio, Florida, and North Carolina. We consider to be the states that will be under particularly high scrutiny as we get closer to the election, in our places where we're likely to see the most political activity, potentially the most shenanigans and things like that. So particularly interested in newsrooms in these states, but interested all over the country. So one of the things that's really important, it is almost the end of July. The Republican convention is behind us. The Democratic convention, it's in August, but there's lots and lots of stuff that you can do starting now. Election's not until November, but there are still many, many great stories to be done soon. So I just wanted to run through a couple of them and then throw it to Erica. So as you go through the hub, there are a bunch of great getting started resources. So there are some things to read. Pam Fessler, former NPR reporter, wrote a terrific getting started guide to covering voting. So things like election administration, how audits work, how votes are counted, on how polling works. I'm not polling, like how working at the polls works. It is an absolutely terrific guide that really should kind of really vault you forward if you're interested in covering how elections work in your area, and how to talk to your election officials. So that's one of the free resources. Also, I talked about the communities of practice. You can get a link to them and join them right from there. And also News Revenue Hub if you're interested in doing voter guides, and we're going to talk about voter guides a lot in a second, the folks at News Revenue Hub put a really terrific thing together on kind of how to create voter guides. Also, I have to plug, because it's one of my favorite things and one of the most important things that you could be doing today. You can actually subscribe in your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar to a terrific resource that Election SOS created around sort of kind of election related events for journalists, but also things like early voting starts, primaries, obviously election day, the Democratic National Convention, but sort of election related events that you can put into your calendar so you can kind of look ahead and kind of guide your coverage and your planning around what's coming up soon. But I want to talk about other stuff that you can do right away. We have some incredible resources on backgrounding candidates. People may remember that we didn't really background George Santos here in New York until he had already been elected into Congress. And so here are some resources that you can use to start backgrounding your candidates, make sure they are who they say they are, understand more about their social media, more about where they get their funding. So we've got relationships with all 3 of the folks here, and they all have resources, training, services, research services that are costly, but and again, that is picking up the check. You can also do a poll. We're working with 2 different polling firms, coincidentally both out of Boston, but we're working with 2 different polling firms, one called Chip 50 out of Northeastern and one called the Mastic Polling Group, which also has a news website. And if you are interested in doing issue-based polls, either with your state or asking, about issues nationally, we're working with these polling firms. We'll run a poll for you. As though you were, USA Today or New York Times, or the kinds of news organizations that still have big polling firms. And finally, I think one of the most important things you can do, both in terms of serving your audience, but also this is going to be a time when, it's sort of prom night for news, when we're going to get a lot more attention than we might typically on a Tuesday in November, or whenever your early voting starts. And this is really an opportunity to introduce ourselves and our news organizations to thousands of new people. And one of the best ways that you can do that is to create a really practical guide to kind of what's on the ballot and how to vote. And we've got a bunch of resources, actually, probably the largest, the plurality of the resources, many resources are in the hub, are dedicated to how to make a great election, how to make a great voting guide. Two that I want to flag here. One is Ballotpedia, which is a service that gets biographical information and a whole bunch of other facts about every candidate on the ballot in all 50 states. It's a really breathtaking resource. Typically, again, this is something that can be quite costly for a newsroom to use Ballotpedia data, but this is another case in which Knight is picking up the check, and so that everybody who is eligible can get the Ballotpedia information for free. And for folks who are interested in doing voter guides and are on WordPress, we actually Knight is also through a grant to Newspack is funding the kind of continuing development of GovPack. In addition to that, Knight is funding Erica Peterson, who I'm going to throw this to work with newsrooms on their voter guide, frankly, whether they use GovPack or not. Erica was at Mountain State Spotlight, and she built their absolutely terrific voter guide using the GovPack tools. And so we asked her to come and kind of democratize, to coin a word, that knowledge and those tools to any newsroom that raises their hand. So with that, and with the knowledge that there are only 105 days until Election Day, I'm going to throw it over to Erica. Let's stop sharing. Erica.
Hey, can you guys see me? Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for that wind up, Scott. And those are all really great resources. I'm going to do a really short version of my voter guide spiel. I feel like some of you have heard this before. I've been kind of making the rounds on this. But the short version is that voter guides are awesome. Voter guides are awesome for a lot of reasons. One is like they're a resource that makes you as a journalist feel good. They are really useful tools in communities to provide really basic ballot information that frankly should be more widely available and just isn't in most places. The other reason is in our capitalist society, even those of us who work in nonprofit newsrooms, voter guides are amazing traffic drivers. Every newsroom I've done one in, they go absolutely crazy, and they introduce your newsroom to new people, they grow your reach, and then they grow your newsletter signups and donations as well. So I am really bought in on this concept so much that I'm doing this for the next couple of months. I think they are great tools that really every newsroom should consider doing. This goes for all newsrooms, regardless of how of the size of your newsroom or the communities you cover. Voter guides can be really useful when they are for local communities, whether you're providing local down ballot information in a town or in a county, whether you're providing that information for an entire state. Or whether you're providing information for a certain community that is not geographically based, whether it's people of a certain ethnicity or people of a certain interest. So issue-based voter guides can be really useful too, to tell people who are the candidates that have espoused certain opinions on these issues. So like another thing about voter guides is I feel like I've come across in various places the kind of attitude that like if you don't have enough resources to provide really in-depth reporting on all of these candidates, then it's just not worth doing. If you can't background everyone, don't background anyone at all, that kind of thing. And I really come to believe that that is not the way to look at this. I think that there's a huge value in giving your audience information about who's on the ballot, along with a few simple ways to gather information about the candidates themselves. And this could mean giving people links to their campaign websites, giving people links to their social media profiles, or sites like Ballotpedia and Open Secrets, which have really a lot of information about, especially like statewide legislative candidates, and of course, people running for kind of federal offices. So a few things that you should think about including in your voter guides. How to vote. This is, again, really, this is not rocket science. Really simple information that is often really hard to access in some places. How to vote, who's on the ballot. And then think about telling people like what the job duties are. When you're voting for somebody for county clerk or for family court judge, I mean, what do these positions do? And how should people judge the candidates if they don't know the duties of the position? And then you can also think about where there are open seats, incumbents' voting records, things like that. Then you need to decide what you're going to cover. Are you creating a voter guide for a city, a county, a region, a state? And the size will dictate the resources you need and will also help you decide how wide and deep you can go. Ballotpedia, which Scott mentioned before, is a really useful tool for some voter guides. They tend to just have information for municipal and county races in the 100 biggest cities in the country. So if you are in one of those 100 biggest cities, then it could be really useful. Or if you're doing a larger statewide voter guide where you're trying to combine a lot of information, that Ballotpedia data could be really useful. So that's one of the resources you can find in the hub, and you can apply for access. And I am also wearing the hat of that. So I will get back to you and we can talk about how you can use that data. And then lastly, what can I offer? Scott mentioned GovPack. GovPack is a tool, was designed by Fernando Diaz, who is now at NewsPack, though he was not when he created GovPack. And it is basically a content management system that doesn't require knowing how to code. You upload all of these profiles, all this data about candidates from a spreadsheet. It's a WordPress plugin, you upload it to your system and it creates profiles that you can then insert into voter guides. So I think that tool is really useful, especially for journalists like myself who are not going to code from scratch a really beautiful voter guide. And I'm working with newsrooms around the country to use that tool in this election cycle. I also can work with you if you don't want to use GovPack, if you aren't on WordPress and it doesn't work for you, we can talk about general voter guide strategy. I have been geeking out about this pretty much nonstop for the past couple of weeks. So I'm happy to just talk about what your voter guide should look like, what kind of information you should include. So I'm going to drop these two things into the chat. This is the GovPack website where you can kind of look at the tool. There's a form at the top you can fill out if you want to talk about possibly using it. And that is my email address. You can also just reach out to me separately and say like, hey, let's talk. What should we do? And to Alyssa's comment too about judicial voter guides, I think that is a really important task. I have never found a really great judicial voter guide, and I would love to talk about that with you if you're thinking about trying to do that. There's some ways you can use GovPack for that too, but we can talk about where to find the information. I think that's it.
So I think, but I'm not sure. So Ballotpedia has something they're calling in beta. There are some government positions that are in beta for them, meaning I think they're wholly not covering everywhere. So it's possible that Ballotpedia has your judicial elections. I think they call it that because they don't have everybody's judicial elections, but it might be worth, if you are interested, message me or contact me. I can get you in touch with, or I can broker a conversation, or Erica actually probably is the best person to do this. Erica can broker a conversation with the folks at Ballotpedia and sort of see if they have your judicial races. If they do, the election hub would be it wouldn't be sort of part of the standard kind of application. But assuming the money is affordable for us, we would be happy to pick up the check for that.